Welcome to the Malibu studio. I am Lori Corbin. I'm your host today. I'm interviewing Neil Johnson. We're talking about film. We're talking not just about any film, but the world's first digital feature film. Neil, is that true?
Yes. Well, it's a complicated thing, so I'm going to take you back in time. So when I started in the film industry, it was the 80s, and everything was shot on film. Everything was shot 35mm or Super 16. I was making my living directing TV commercials, low rent ones of course, music videos and what have you, and I became very good at making videotape look like film.
We got a hook, line and sinker, and some water.
Oh, sounds good, mate.
Beyond the normal realm, to the point where, you know, places like Warner Brothers that shooting 35mm and what have you, they didn't know any better, and I didn't tell them any different, because I was pioneering shooting techniques and editing techniques to make it look like film, and it was quite complicated, but you know, it's what I did. Coming through film school, obviously I did some short films that were pretty horrible.
This digitizer works as an activator for the time vortex. It's electronically linked to the platform.
I started doing these short films again outside of film school, you know, when you're supposed to focus on just, you know, a career. I couldn't help myself but make science fiction short films. It's just embedded in me to do these things. Actually, around the year 1990, I started playing with digital filmmaking techniques, you know, using computers and doing matte paintings. Even in film school, actually, I think 1985, I was doing strange matte paintings, photographs, cutting out photographs and putting them in front of a TV screen. So it was kind of a rear projection thing, very similar to, you know, what's done now, actually. But it was very horrible. So I was always experimenting with, you know, ideas and techniques, and I heard about you know, digital cameras might be coming soon, so I was extremely excited, because the cost of shooting 35mm film is just so prohibitively expensive, and there's no way if I wanted to do a feature film that I could afford to do a 35mm. I am British and I was living in Australia, so it was nearly an impossible situation to get a movie funded. You know, there was no interest, there was no business per se. I was 21, I was the first television director in Australia. I was the youngest television director in Australia, doing TV commercials and stuff. A few years after that, I was working for this big production house, and I heard about digital, and I got very excited. Back then, you couldn't do a movie for under, I guess, $250,000. Sony came out with this new camera. It was a digital Betacam camera, anamorphic widescreen, which was really the first of its kind. So we're talking a full digital, goes onto videotape, but a digital videotape. So I basically got a hold of Sony's first digital camera. I think it was a prototype, I'm not 100% sure, but you know, we had access to, through our company, a Sony video camera that shot anamorphic 16:9 digital tape, you know, digi-Betacam, but it wasn't just normal digi-Betacam, it was anamorphic, and not many people even knew what to do with anamorphic. This was the year 94, I guess.
Well, maybe if you were just a little more open-minded.
It looked good. It looked like film, almost. Everyone was shooting Super 16mm film or 35mm film. That's how you made a feature film. So The Demons in My Head was, I think, conceived in 1995.
Tell me, because you made a horror film, right? Why horror?
Well, I'm into science fiction. And again, you go to the film markets, you talk to people, and they say, well, science fiction is not selling. It's not cool. Horror films are cool. And I liked horror films as well, because I was into that sort of thing. So I tried to make a science fiction horror film.
So immediately after finishing a short film called The Plague, which really was a test run for some of the VFX that I wanted to do, I started writing a film called There's Aliens in My Garden. I was developing the idea that eventually would become Demons in My Head. Basically, the story was a flying saucer crashed in the backyard of this person's house, and he found this device inside. Maybe a little bit loosely inspired by the film Laser Blast, which was a kind of a cool pulp B-movie. In my younger years, I'd been a bit of a born-again Christian, and nothing I'm really proud of course, but at the time it was seemed valid. And I spent some time in the missionary field. I was hanging around with these Christian bikers, rode Harley Davidsons and stuff, also spreading the word of God, and somehow we ended up in the Philippines on a missionary situation. One time we had this Christian guy who was it was more of a charismatic, happy-clappy type of, version of the Christianity. We were more Baptist-based, I guess. And he was very offended, or their group was very offended that we were there spreading the word of Christ, or our word of Christ, and their word of Christ was a little different. We're talking very minor things. At one point he had a Jesus shirt on, and he was holding a machine gun and pointing a gun at us and being very aggressive towards us. And I kind of thought, well, this is an interesting situation being a missionary, and I always thought, what problems would missionaries get themselves into? So a little while later, of course, I was writing Demons in My Head, and I had to kind of have a little stab at the missionary field and people going door to door and everything. I guess it was also, I was being annoyed a lot by Jehovah's Witnesses at the time, would come around and try to preach their Jesus to me. So it kind of stemmed from that position. Anything else I ever did was always on location and like big epic landscapes. So it was a little bit of a backward step to even do a film in a single location, but it's my first movie. What do people know?
And all the advice I was given was wrong. And that was the thing. You should shoot 35, or at least 16 millimeter. And I was like, I wanted to, but I just couldn't afford it. And this is where it comes down to money at the time, in Australia. 1995, I managed to get about $35,000 in total. So I'd had a bit of directing experience, but your first feature film, it was the 90s. And it was kind of, a different world. Yeah. And I went around and I said, I'm going to do a movie and, talk to a few people and, they give you the list of things you should do, make it a movie with no locations, shoot in one room if you can, blah, blah, blah. I spoke to some people about doing it digital, and they said, you're an idiot. You shouldn't do this. It'll look like crap. And I said, really? Yeah.
How about, casting? You had to probably hire and pay and all that too.
Well, my producing partner, Jane Rowland, owned an acting academy, so we were able to sort of pull from the best actors around. And, we cast, wonderful guy, Matthew Mariconti. And he was just one of those people who just came alive on camera, and we got him for the lead.
No, it's dangerous.
All right then. Create for me $1 million.
I'll create for you $1,000.
In 50s?
Got this guy called Greg Bowman-Miles, who played a gay character who was also transgender.
Whoa.
Who turned into a woman.
That was early.
Yeah. Gave me a lot of problems later, him, the situation. Amber Allen, we got as an actress, this gorgeous blonde.
What did you tell him?
There's Jane Rowland, the producer, she was also in it, and really great actor. She's incredible. So, we start having people hear about this horror film on the Gold Coast in Australia, in Brisbane, which is near Brisbane.
Of course, we decided to shoot in the middle of summer, and it was shot in Australia. It was shot in my own house at the time. There was no air conditioning inside, and it was unbearable heat. So we shot everything on this digital camera in an anamorphic system. It was definitely the first anamorphic widescreen digital feature film that stayed digital the entire time. It was edited online in a computer system, and nothing had been done on that level, including VFX and everything, all in the computer and then output to digital tape. We assembled a really good team of actors. It's very hard finding actors in Australia. I'd say the most experienced actor we had on set was David Vallon, who'd been a star of stage and screen and television in the UK. Quite a legend, you know, definitely the most senior actor on set. Obviously caused a few problems because some of the other crew and actors weren't as experienced, and he was a little challenged by the working with those types of people. Not in a bad way, he just, you know, you could tell he was used to a different type of situation. Everyone was very fresh.
David Vallon started arguing with the two of the other women who were on set with had a superior role, shall we say. They were like production manager roles or something, and David Vallon had never seen women in charge either.
I guess.
So he had a little bit of a problem,
Mm-hmm.
with the fact that there were, a lot of women in charge.
In charge, sure.
Which, it's just because he's from that old world.
Gotcha.
I get it, but it's just Australia has a very much the women are very strong. So I think to see that come out of that country, I'm not saying it spread from there, but it was always a leading edge of. There was a strong feminist movement in Australia always, because it's just the nature of the country.
Right,
It's a tough country.
We call him the wisest man in the universe. Well, he's actually Dr. Hatcher. He has a little bit of an interesting flow, because he starts off kind of, a bit nutty, a bit Doctor Who-ish, and brilliant actor, David Vallon. And of course I gave him a bigger role in the second film. So if I wanted to tie the two films together, I kind of had to make it the same character, but just different incarnations. In certain times in life, you are a nice, happy person, and things can happen to you and make you much more twisted and deranged.
First day of the shoot, I get a phone call. It's the actor playing the Nephilim. And he's been in a car accident and he can't make it, of course, because he's in hospital. Then half an hour later, I get another phone call. It's from the original actress who was playing Larissa. Her boyfriend read the script and decided he didn't want her to be in it because it involved a sex scene. Then I think another 2 hours after that, I get a phone call. It's the actor playing Bill this time. And he's really decided it's not the right thing for him to do, because his kids would be offended seeing his intestines sprayed all over the place. So at the end of day one, we're down 3 actors, but we may do.
But it was just how it was. It's not like Hollywood where or Malibu, where you literally walk down the street and you meet a famous actor.
Right.
It's nothing like that. Nobody, to meet an actor full stop in that country is like rare.
And what was obviously, so the actors sort of rebelled. What about the locals? Were they happy, or maybe not once they found out the content?
Well, again, actually, we did get again, Christian people, when they hear about demon possession movies and it's an evil film, not a Christian film, especially in small communities, the word got out. I got letters in the mailbox telling me that I was doing wrong things. There were a few Christians in the street that were alerted to what we were doing.
Wow.
And I literally got people knocking on the door. And leaving notes and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, you haven't even seen the movie.
Right.
And we're not doing The Last Temptation of Christ. We're just doing a basic horror film, that may or may not have,
Yeah.
And we even had a character in there who was we had a born-again Christian in that thing who maybe she turned to the dark side. So you can understand.
Don't give it away.
No, but see, then the locals were like, some of the people thought, some of the people in the street were excited. So they were like, they're very excited. But all of a sudden, a movie comes to town and you got to park your car somewhere. So all the parking spots in the street were taken up. And they formed a committee and came around and said, this is not on. And they gave me a list of rules of what they wanted, which involved not parking the cars nearby.
Yeah.
And some people took great offense, just the fact we're doing a movie, because, it just meant chaos. What the first day of shoot, it was chaos.
Right.
And we weren't a big production, but We shot in the middle of summer, which is a mistake, of course. It's Australia, it's very humid. We had actors on set pass out from the heat. It was extreme. I mean, I bought an air conditioner and moved it around to each room because my house was a quaint house and was not air conditioned.
Right.
We had fans, but didn't work.
What not to do, right?
But, that's how it was. And, I remember shooting, we had like one of the Matthew Mariconte's wife would come on set and she would get these little napkins and wet them, put them in the fridge and put them around her neck.
Brilliant.
So it was nice people. There was some good people around.
Yeah.
Welcome to the lower level! Have you been a bad boy?
There's this guy called Ronnie Scott who played the Plastic Man, is what we called him. And he was a crazy actor, but incredible, really good actor. I mean, natural talent beyond. And he was a vegetarian. But there was a scene that involved him attacking somebody and tearing out their intestines with his mouth.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, the old rule back then was, if you wanted real intestines, use real meat, uncooked livers and from the
my. Oh my.
So that's what we did. But he literally went crazy and ate the raw meat. Like he's a vegetarian. And he lost control, ate the meat, and oh my God, great footage.
Great footage.
Went outside, threw up, And, just on a side note, he did such a good job, but the role went to his head in a weird way, in the sense that he disappeared. He's never been, he literally, from what I was told, went on walkabout to the outback of Australia.
Really?
And he's probably settled somewhere in Alice Springs or somewhere. But it just messed with him so much.
Yeah.
No one ever saw him after the film.
Oh my gosh.
Ever again.
Welcome to the lower level! Have you been a bad boy? Welcome to the lower level. Have you been a bad boy?
The guy playing the Plastic Man, originally I called him the Plastic Man because he was going to be covered in plastic, but it made too much noise, so we decided to give him a different sort of outfit. And Lisa Jacob, who was obviously in charge of the makeup, did an amazing job on him. I met the actor originally. He sent me a photo of himself as Charles Manson, and he looked exactly like Charles Manson. He had the beard and the hair, and this is bizarre. This guy sent me a photo of Charlie Manson. But it really was the actor, and I mean, he would just play these insane sort of roles. And the guy's an absolute genius. A really nice guy, but an absolute genius. But he really put himself into the role.
This'll be memorable!
Got a little scary with him sometimes. I mean, definitely a method actor. He let the character take control of him, and he ate all this raw flesh. I mean, it was real raw meat there, and some of it wasn't very healthy. And he was like throwing this stuff down, and he just went, I wouldn't say he went too far, because I mean, he created a great character, but the character took over him. And I mean, this is the God's honest truth. You can just see the footage. He has no control over himself. The character is controlling him. And you could call this demon possession if you want. And I mean, he apparently had a very hard time dealing with this. And we were scared a couple of times. He had the big buzzsaw thing he holds up.
It's time for some renovations around the house, laddie!
I was terrified that he actually would, drop the thing into Regis and start cutting him up. I truly was. I mean, we were on set, and I remember grabbing it off him the moment the shot was finished.
It's time to do some renovations around the house,
laddie! He just was such an intense guy. He just couldn't help himself. So as soon as the film was finished, he just disappeared. We just couldn't contact the guy. I mean, I don't even know if he's even seen the film. But apparently, he went into a psychiatric hospital for a time because, the film had such an effect on him. He, I think, went insane. Not completely insane, but he just went, off the planet. I mean, you don't blame him. And then last I heard, he actually went to the middle of Australia and was living in isolation with his girlfriend in the middle of Australia with nothing else around him. The guy's a genius actor. I hope he comes back one day because I'd like to work with him again, but you know, wow, I'll never give him that role. I'll find a nice role for him to do, I think, next time.
This will be memorable!
Now, Greg Bowman Miles did an incredible job. He played this gay character who, by the end, spoiler alert, turned into a woman. You know, because he was in love with, you know, Travis, who played Matthew Maricotti. He was in love with that character. So it was a kind of a weird gay transgender situation. Turns out certain countries took great offense to the gayness in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And they were actually refused, you know, to take the film. I won't even say what nations they were from. They refused to take the film because of the gayness. Wow. And it was just one of those situations where, I don't know how you explain it, but I felt it was justified having a transgender gay character in the thing. I'm not gay. I had a lot of friends who were gay, and I just thought it was a cool idea. Mm-hmm. And it made sense for the character. But my goodness, did I get trashed because of that, and abused, and you know, blah blah blah, and everything else. Yet the film did well in certain areas because you know, it was almost a gay film. Not really. In real life, he wasn't even gay. He was just had this wonderful, bubbly, red-headed, big bosom wife, you know, gorgeous-looking couple. You know. Uh-huh. Oh my! And he was such a good actor that he could just go there. You know.
And then you said Jane Rowland was a producer, but she was acting in the film as well?
Yeah. Now, again, she owned an acting academy, and she was this, dare I say it, a powerhouse, in the sense that, you know, she was, again, the 90s, you know, the whole, still a little bit of a man culture, especially in Australia. And I loved the fact that she would just get in and, you know, do things, and she really great actor, but it was really hard on her because she was producing and acting, and she had a lot of dialogue, and it wasn't a small role.
It's a tough gig to do both, let me tell you. I mean, her acting was superb, her producing was superb, but it was stressful for her, I think, to do both. She really embodied the character, and I think it was one of those crowning achievements of her acting career, I'm sure. And also producing career too, because, you know, she went on to produce other things.
Very sweet thing to say.
Can we just run that line again?
Can Travis stop making all those water noises? I'm finding it so distracting.
We really need the shot. We really need him there.
Yeah, but I'm hearing
She was based upon a doctor I saw. I had to film like dead bodies once for some documentary, and there was this doctor, this beautiful woman, female doctor, and there she was just eating her lunch beside all the dead bodies, and it was just really a strange sight to see, and I sort of took a bit of that and made the Marcia character out of it. But of course, Marcia's destiny is written in the stars. She was meant to be the, you know, the queen of the Nephilim. She was just fulfilling her role. You know, as you could see, she'd had a life, and it really hadn't had an impact on her, and she was almost directionless when the Nephilim came to her.
Well, would you like a drink? Cheers.
That was interesting.
Really strange time, and to cap it off, I decided I'd do my first cameo in a film.
Fuck, that hurt.
I guess somebody had to play the demon, and the other guy we had lined up to do the demon originally, he had a car accident and was thrown in the hospital. So, you know, you could say the film was cursed from day one. First day of shooting was really strange. I remember, you know, get a phone call, this guy's in hospital, he can't be the demon. Great, no problem, you know, we can fix it, I'll be the demon. Then I get a phone call from the girl playing Larissa, the original person playing Larissa, and she says, oh, I don't really want to do the film because it has a sex scene and my boyfriend's going to be offended and we're going to have an argument and we're going to split up over this. So, of course, you know, nice of this girl to tell me, you know, on the day of shooting, not, you know, a couple of weeks before. So luckily I was able to talk to Amber Allen, who was playing the fantasy woman, and she did a double role, which kind of worked in nicely.
Bill's a bit of a linguist. He's had experience on many archaeological digs.
And why is Bill going door to door peddling membership for your religion?
The guy who was playing Bill, again, an interesting story. I think he had a bit of a religious side to him. He was very concerned that his children would be upset if they saw him, you know, torn apart with his guts hanging out and everything. So he also called up on the first day of shooting and said, I cannot be in the film. So I got my props department head, who was James Dobbin, who also was an actor, and I threw him into the role and he did a great job. He is Bill, the stuttering preacher from Back of Beyond. Okay, let's do it. Is it over?
It's fantastic, Ingo. It's worth it.
Okay. Right, please. Sure. And action.
I offer my body to you as a living sacrifice.
Again.
I offer my body to you as a living sacrifice.
Let's do it once again.
There's no more left.
I still feel very strongly about the characters. There are, you know, some. I mean, people could say, yes, we see a bit of you in this character. I mean, you have to write from the heart, and you have to sort of create people from what you know. I'm really not any of these people in this film, but they're people who I guess maybe have known or you know, there's a tiny piece of me here or there. You know, it's nice to see that. Travis obviously, you know, starts out very down on himself, I guess, a little bit. It's his way of becoming a man, I guess. And of course, in the path to manhood, you have to make mistakes and you have to fuck up. So, you know, that's the path he walks. And by the end of the film, you know, he really is much more of a complete person, though still, you know, still has his faults and still has much to learn. He has developed. And of course, Regis is another one. Obviously starts out as the gay character and turns into a woman. So he has a nice little character journey. I mean, I'm not going to make a statement about every gay person wants to be a woman, of course, you know, it's just this character decided, you know, he's better served as a woman, and a blonde one with, you know, ample breasts is always a good choice. The David Walters character is very interesting. I actually did base him on a high school acquaintance who was, I guess he was a bully, more of an emotional bully, but you know, he kind of wasn't a pleasant person. His name wasn't David Walters, it was David something else. If he's watching this, he knows who I'm talking about, because I even cast a guy who looks like him. Well, Bill and Marsha, obviously they're kind of Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, the line, I witnessed a car crash once, is obviously a play on the Jehovah's Witnesses. I used to have many of those Jehovah's Witnesses come to visit me and preach the gospel, and I would turn them away, or I'd sit there and argue with them for a couple of hours and they would leave with their faith in tatters. So they were kind of, you know, obviously inspired from that, but you know, the Marcia character is much more complex.
Matthew Maraconte, he was, as I said, he was just the perfect person for this role. Such a stoic and wonderful human being, and pushing him to those levels. I guess you kind of need a little bit of mental strength to play to those roles. He was a really nice guy, an absolute gem of a human being.
I'm young. I'm supposed to do foolish things.
It's very interesting to note that, you know, with his performance and everything else, he ended up becoming a Christian, a born-again Christian, and becoming a preacher, and even had his own church, which is very interesting looking at the way his life had gone, you know, prior to that, you know, being an actor and stuff. So he ended up turning to Christ.
One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He was selling real estate for a while, and you know, he's well known. He was recognized on the street. But then he decided to become a pastor, a minister in a church, and he had his own church, and it was a big church, and he had a big following. But he was such a nice human being. You know, this guy, you couldn't help but like this guy. And he genuinely was a really good human being. You know, had a wife who was still with him throughout all the years, and family, and seriously a good human. And I never reconnected with him. I wanted to, because, you know, he disappeared, but I was told later, and I finally tracked down his wife on Facebook, and found out, you know, literally a month before, that he got brain cancer, and he passed away. And I was just like, oh my goodness.
That's sad.
There's the whole life of a man, you know, in a nutshell. You know, did a movie, got to be a star, you know, got to have a church. The things you do in life, you know, how does it resonate in your whole life? But the fact is, it's a moment in time. I know he was proud of it. and his family was proud of it, that he did it, and they never were negative about it. But there's this moment in the scene where his brain, he literally looked like his brain was exploding on camera.
Wow.
And it's like, it mirrors his real life in a way that you could, he had a real complete journey. And, I was just devastated. It's just like, how do you come to terms with that? How do you, he's immortal for me on screen. He's like a member of my family.
Right.
And even though I'd never, seen him again because I left the country.
Right.
It just broke my heart. It
bet.
destroys you.
Oh, yes.
But all I can say is now, I was able to contact his widow and said, look, here's all the footage from the movie. You can have all of it and have a look.
Oh, that's nice.
So we got a piece of him. We've captured his life, his moment, his I think he was 25 at the time. We captured him and kept him alive. And he will live forever.
His only great movie was my film. He was such a good actor, and he could have obviously gone on to doing great things, but being in Australia, you're kind of limited with your outlook. So he ended up, as I said, becoming a preacher and having his own church, and a very loving church, apparently, and very wonderful, and he was very much beloved, which I guess is a life worth living.
How did it all work with, you were making it gory and all that. What were the makeup people? How did they do?
Oh, interesting. So, yeah, again, they were first timers, just come out of makeup school. and I had to do a scene where I was like completely covered in latex. I decided to do a demon. Because again, trying to find actors.
So you're in your own film.
I had one night where I was a demon.
Okay.
I had latex glued all over my body and stuff. And these makeup artists, they went on from that to do Lord of the Rings.
Oh my word.
So the orcs in Lord of the Rings, they kind of tried it out on me first. So if I look like an orc from from the Lord of the Rings, those
right.
That's where it started. I'm not saying that's where they got the idea from, but they tried it on me first. So I had all this latex glued on my body, which was probably my idea and, stupid idea. But then I had a reaction to the latex. So, you peel it off. I had a rash.
Oh, I'll bet. I'll bet.
It looked horrendous.
Oh.
I had to shave all the hair off my body.
Oh, my word.
And I broke out.
Yes.
In fact, funny story. So I felt so self-conscious about it. I went to the beach all the time. And it was like my butt cheeks. It was everywhere because, I just looked like a freak.
Right.
And I was deeply embarrassed. So I went to this beach that was secluded on the Gold Coast, and I put a male G-string on and sunbaked and, went to the ocean and nobody could see me. And I sunbaked to try to get all the salt and everything. And, I had this massively horrible rash on my butt cheek.
Oh, jeez.
So I'm sitting there, in the sand, and I could hear people behind me. I'm trying to get some sun. These people kept looking and watching me, and then they'd run away. And I was like, oh, this is weird. And it happened a few times. Turned out that was a gay beach, in the sense of that's the beach you go to find, to hook up, a secret hookup thing. Kind of like George Michael.
I see. Okay.
It was a hookup beach.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Oh,
so
my
these
word.
people would come in thinking, oh, and then there's a dude
Right.
off his butt.
Yeah.
Get closer, they see the rash, and they run away.
No, thank you. Okay. Oh, my gosh.
What was that? I guess that was a Nephilim.
So I had to be a demon. I had no choice. Already I had this burden of my first film and everything else, but now I've got to act in the thing as well. So we worked out a makeup thing, and in between our shooting times, we did makeup tests. What I had to do was actually remove all the hair from my body, because we wanted these creatures to be strong, kind of primordial.
Marcia. No, sorry.
That's all right. No.
I'm getting it.
You're nearly there. Just once more, please.
Once more.
Marcia.
It was 6 hours in the makeup chair. That 6 hours, other things could have got done. So it's a stupid thing to do, but maybe the ego and ideas of youth are sometimes there. They went on to work on Lord of the Rings, and if you look at the orcs in Lord of the Rings, are very, very similar. So it's kind of cool, it's not exactly the same, but you can see the same vibe had come through in their makeup, which I thought was very cool. I guess 30 years later, the DP I hired, Grant Hoy, he was used to shooting film, and he lit it like a 35mm film set, I wanted something much more darker and spooky, and of course shooting in one location is pretty much impossible. But in retrospect, now we've blown this movie up to 4K, and it still looks good. Is a testament to the director of photography and his ability to light well, even though I didn't give him many lights, and he didn't have much crew. It remains competent to this day because of his work. There's one shot I'm really proud of in the film, where it's a close-up on Travis, and everything's out of focus, and we didn't cut away, and we just kept things out of focus, and that's pretty much defined my career. That type of shot is very common in my world now. Yeah, it genuinely was a mistake to do it all on one location. And yes, I'm not the kind of filmmaker like the Kevin Smiths and those independent people who just do movies in one location. That's not my thing. I have too much energy and too much vision to do something so meager. If I have to climb a mountain or go somewhere or go to a volcano to do a scene, I do that. That's what I do. That's been my testament. So this is a very un-Neil Johnson-like movie, shall we say. And if you look at all my other stuff, this is completely different. But it was a good step forward, and I'm very proud of it. Around this time, there was, editing was still done on videotape or on film. There was nothing else. There was some offline, non-linear editing computer systems, but nothing was online. And when I say online, I mean there was nothing that existed where you could actually finish your movie on a computer. It just didn't happen.
This company called, I think they were called IMAX. They brought out a thing called the Turbo Cube, which was a digital editing system. But instead of being an offline system, that means, a low quality system. George Lucas had developed one called the Edit Droid. Mm-hmm. So instead of being that, it was capable of doing online quality, which means broadcast television quality. So that was an okay system. And then they suddenly had a new prototype that was even better, that could do anamorphic and all this. And it was 3:1 compression. It was called the Stratosphere. And because I was doing a lot of music videos, and they were really, I guess, impressed with what I was doing in Australia at the time, they said, would you like the prototype to play with? And I said, yes, please. And the company I worked for bought this system eventually for $125,000. So it wasn't cheap.
No.
Literally cut on a computer and spit it out to tape and put it on television or what have you, and it was good. Equivalent to the same quality as what the videotape was capturing in 3:1 compression. I basically started cutting a feature film on the IMAX Stratosphere. It's even hard to even find copies of this unit now, it's almost forgotten. But it was incredible, truly an incredible system. And you could edit anamorphic, standard definition, widescreen, and just had enough hard drive space to just do a feature film if you were lucky. And the trick was, to be honest, was to really make people think I shot 35mm. I didn't have a feeling of, okay, I'm going to make a movie. But turns out I was the first person to actually make an anamorphic digital feature film that, never saw any form of analog whatsoever. It was shot on a camera, on digital tape. It was captured into a computer, it was edited, all the VFX finished in the computer and spat out to digital tape and projected. So that's what demons in my head was. I really wanted to shoot 16mm or 35mm, but there is no way in hell that anyone would give me a cent. Of course, we did screen the film in 1995 on the Gold Coast in Australia, little theatre.
So we had a premiere, sold out.
Now the neighbors want to go.
Exactly. No, it's so true. Suddenly they're all proud again that we did a movie. Right. And they're all talking about it. I get it.
Right.
So we have the screening, and it was a big event, covered by the press and everything else. One guy got physically troubled by everything and actually threw up and fainted in the screening.
That's probably a good testimonial to a good horror film.
Well, I think he'd never seen a horror film before, to be honest with you.
Oh, my word.
Now, again, all digital, took a digital Betacam deck into the projection place, hooked up the cable, and we projected digitally. Again, a first. So a
Wow.
whole digital projection, a very early system, digital projector.
Yeah.
In 1995, which again now it's like, wow, that was the first. But you're not sitting there saying, I'm going to be the first. You're saying, I want to show this movie. I don't want people to know it's digital, it's videotape. It was considered not cool. Got a lot of interesting press as well. Nobody really cared about the fact that we shot a digital movie because it wasn't really a thing. We actually didn't tell many people because we're embarrassed. I took it to the Queensland Film Commission. And they were like, we're not going to support you. You didn't shoot 35mm. What are you thinking? They were very snooty about the fact that we had shot it digital. You are a fool for doing this. Maybe one day if you want to submit some paperwork to us, we will fund a short film for you, which you should shoot 35mm, but we are not going to have anything to do with you doing a movie on digital. That was the wrong decision. But I said, well, what's the point? I've done a feature film. I'm going to take it to market and sell it. Yes, but it's not really a movie, is it? And I was told that constantly for a few years. I took it to the film market.
Seemed to really like the movie, and they took the movie from there, sold off the rights to other territories and, other distributors.
Oh, okay.
And I think we got like 25, 26 or 27 territories sold, all except for the Australian territories. So what happened was, it's kind of a hit film. In the sense, from Australia, to sell that many territories, it's quite a big deal.
Right.
And, they took the movie, shopped it round. Suddenly there's copies everywhere in the world, and it's getting some attention. I went to the UK, went to Blockbuster, the video store.
Sure.
VHS was released, nice big chunky VHS, and it was in the top 10.
Nice.
This is amazing. It's not really a great film, I'll be honest with you. But it was good enough because nobody realized it was digital. Everyone thought it'd be shot 16 or 35mm.
Right.
Nobody thought digital.
Right.
And so people thought it was an underground art film, and it was. And I actually went to the distributor in the UK and I said, my name's Neil Johnson. I made this movie that you're selling. Do you suppose I could have a copy of it on VHS because I'm proud of it? So, they said, no, really? They thought I was weird. They didn't really give me an answer. I went to their office and said, look, this is who I am. Could I at least buy a copy? Thinking they'd give me one for free.
Right.
Oh, no, you can't buy a copy.
Oh, please.
Because it's only for video rental stores. You're an individual. We don't sell to individuals. I said, but my name's on it. And they didn't believe me.
Oh, geez.
They kicked me out of their their building and said, you got to leave. And they said, we're going to call security. It's like,
Oh, my word.
I can show you my ID.
Right. Oh, my gosh.
And it's just how it was.
A little short-sighted.
Well, so I realized later what was going on. And this is a common thing with the distributors. They'll take your movie, they sell it off to other people. And they'll take the money and the distributor will then run away and never pay you, the filmmaker. So, they didn't like the fact that, the filmmaker was turning up in case it was a legal thing, because there often were legal disputes.
Oh, I see.
So they were a little concerned about the legality of what I was doing.
I see.
Whether I was, because many years later, I have sued many distributors.
I'll bet you have to keep after it.
I actually did sue them later.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Wow. I've heard that with books, magazines. That
Yeah.
makes total sense.
We're estimating they made about $250,000 selling the movie rights to many countries, like 20 countries. Never got a cent out of it. That's kind of the game, I guess. It was a good lesson in how to get screwed. To this day, the movie is still on DVD in Germany. This is when, physical media is dead, so that's quite an exciting fact.
I then went back to Australia. I told the Queensland Film Commission, who are the governing body for movies and stuff. I said, look, I made this digital movie. So I've sold 27 territories.
Yes.
I think that's it's a hit film. I think I have some understanding of the market. And they said, well, no. You haven't sold to Australia. I said, no, that's correct. I have not sold to Australia, but I've sold everywhere else. Australia's a small, thing. And they were just rude,
We went to the Screen Producers Association, I think it was 1999 or 2000, this is when I was preparing for my second film.
A yearly event where all the producers from all around the world and Australia would get together, talk about movies and have seminars and stuff.
I was a bit of a joke there, to be honest. And then George Lucas and Rick McCallum were there.
Jane Rowland, the producer, told George Lucas and Rick McCallum about what I did. And they said, he's done a digital film? Yeah, we did one a few years ago.
Mhm.
And they just went, oh. But then George Lucas mentioned me
Mhm.
in public somewhere at the association and mentioned my name
Mhm.
and touted me as somebody who was doing, it was the future.
Wow.
Because that's when he started saying the future is digital.
I sat down and spoke mostly to Rick McCallum. George was very quiet. Rick was just like, talking a million miles an hour. I told Rick exactly what I did and how I did it, and gave him all the details. And we spent listening and chatting for hours on how I made it look like film and everything. And the process was, we shot some 35mm film and overlaid the grain on top of the videotape, and also we took out one field of the frames to basically remove it was basically de-interlaced, which is a technical term for making video look more like film. And it was nice to know that somebody in the world actually thought I did the right thing rather than demeaning me for what I'd done, choosing the wrong path.
After that, I got Rick McCallum said, here's my emails. If you've got any questions, need any help, here it is. I kind of stayed out of their head a little bit because, and then he sat me down. He said, look, I got to tell you something. On Star Wars Episode 1, we did one scene as a secret. It's not secret anymore. We did one scene digital to see how it would look. And it's a scene in Anakin's bedroom. So when you watch that movie, it's the first digital scene we did.
Oh.
But we don't tell anybody. I thought that's so cool.
Attack of the Clones comes out, it's all digital, projected digitally. And it's like, well, that's exciting. I was doing that 7 years before, and suddenly this is now a thing. And I was like, wow, this is exciting. People said the digital revolution started in, about the early 2000s. Well, I was already there. I think I got into my third movie in 2001. It was only recently that people started saying, didn't you do a digital film back then? And I looked at it and said, yeah, it was 1995. I don't think anyone had really done a full digital feature film before me, because we were doing it with prototypes. We were doing it with the Sony prototype camera and the Stratosphere editing system. There was nothing else out there that could have done it before this time. Finishing a movie on a computer was literally impossible until about 1995. The amount of negativity and crap that had been thrown upon me was substantial. And to have this one little moment where, hey, you're in the top 10 in another country is really kind of cool. I just wish I'd gotten a photo, but I know I made the top 10. Who else cares, The other regret I have is shooting it all pretty much, apart from one cut, one scene, everything was in the same location. And I know, again, I was told that's the way you do it. But a smaller crew and going out on location, that's usually how I work now. And obviously my films look a lot more epic. Interesting that at the time I also wrote a thing called The Time War, which has now become my latest television series. It's a 10-hour movie, shall we say. That was written about the same time. Of course, it's been rewritten since, but there's a stark difference. Had I gone ahead and made The Time War at the time and shot on location, I think it would befitted me more. So, people who see The Time War now, it's pretty much more my style of movie, even though it's a 10-hour movie, it's a big story to tell. So interesting that those two bits of product came out of the same writing time of 1995. Don't think I have any other regrets, because you have to fail in life to grow and learn and develop. And so, I've failed pretty much my entire career. I constantly fail at everything. I haven't had any success. Maybe it looks that way to the outside world, but believe me, it's been a struggle around in the world digitally, and I went kind of overboard with the digital extravaganza, just like about everyone else in this world has done.
Terranoster vessels dropping the sublight. Bring it around.
Hi, Captain.
All hands, prepare for battle. Shields at maximum.
They kind of overdid the VFX and everything, and now it's kind of forced me to pull myself back. So yes, I've been digital longer than just about any other person on the planet. When you look at the period of time and the amount of content I've put out, and all I care about now is something that doesn't look digital and looks cinematic. So, there's a big lesson there. Maybe other people will learn that lesson in time. But, we've probably got to get away from things being too sterile and clean, and you know, focus on the good lenses and stuff. There's been strange fans over the years who really, you know, painted pictures of it, and it's had its resonance in society. Little fan groups have done little pretend religious ceremonies based on the film. That was kind of cool. It had a cult following at the time. The more it ages, the more interesting the film will become, because it's going to be a period piece very soon.
Well, you were ahead of your time. Clearly, no one would think twice about it now.
I know. I wanted the money. I wanted success. I
Yes.
didn't want to be.
You were outside the box, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it ended a lot of death threats. You know,
Oh.
a lot of, oh my goodness.
Wow.
A lot of stuff because of the gay thing.
I do forget what years. I think we TV will show 30 something, which was a television show in the States. Gosh, probably in the 90s, was the first time you saw two men in bed and you knew they weren't just roommates. But there was no touching, no sexual action, but yet you realized that they were going to sleep together, you know. But it was just hinted. It was, you know, insinuated, but that was kind of it. I think that was early 90s. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a big deal.
It was coming in.
It's a big deal.
The fact that it's digital it's a very interesting point. Any movie from 1995 that exists now would have been shot on film. And I'll give you a good example, the movie Seven. There's, you know, you can project that movie in the theater and you know, at the time it looked good, but those film prints are degrading. The negative is not always going to be as perfect as it should be, and they have scanned that negative to digital. But my movie, The Demons in My Head, shot digital, looks identical to the day we shot it. It will never break down like you know, film will do. It will be an eternal digital file that'll never age, that'll never get destroyed. You know, you can copy and copy and copy that movie and it will still be the same movie as the original. So that is the advantage of digital. You know, digital will probably last much longer in the grand scheme of things. You can see how the movie was intended to look, and it will be a great snapshot into the, you know, the world of 1995. It's becoming now a period film. God, you know, it's pretty horrible to see that. But anything shot on film, will it last 100 years in its original format? No, barely. You know, they have to make prints. They'll have to digitize it, turn it to digital. So, you know, I feel kind of excited by the fact that this is the movie. It will always be encapsulated as a digital movie. And that's actually really quite nice to know. The only way you can destroy that film is if there's, you know, some electromagnetic pulse. But as long as you keep copying that movie to another hard drive every 5 years with backups, you will never lose this movie. It will exist in its purest form 1,000 years from now. So there is some hope for digital filmmaking. You know, I feel that's a valid thing. That being said, you know, I'm not a lover of digital. It was a necessity for me, and I really am much more interested in ancient lenses and analog things, and even the VFX. You know, I've completely turned my back on doing, you know, VFX with 3D spaceships. You know, I'm building physical spaceships now and physical robots, and everything's physical. Because when you look at it, there's an uncanny valley about when you look at something that's AI, you can tell it's not real. And even though it could be the greatest AI you've ever seen, it will still look weird. And it will always look weird because it's not reality. Of course, there'll be a point where it's, you know, it's indiscernible, but we are really, that's that last 10%. I don't think that's going to come for 5 or 10 years. I think it's going to be 50 to 100 years. And by then, you know, who's going to care? You know, we are capturing moments that are live. I don't think it's valid for somebody, and myself included, and I have done this, to do a movie on green screen because, yeah, it'll be good at the time and then it'll be forgotten, like some of the films I've done. But a movie that was shot in a real location with real glass, in real moments, on a, you know, with truth, this should be preserved for life. Go look at some of the old Marvel films now and look how dated they are. Yet you can still look at Star Wars or The Empire Strikes Back and see, okay, it was physical. and it still has a truth and a resonance to it. You know, it's a moment in time captured. It's not a digital recreation of what reality could have been. And so, you know, I will always fight against being digital. It's a great tool, but I think, you know, in digital filmmaking, one should strive for anything else that's not digital to, you know, to capture the analog truth of the moment. And that's, you know, that's literally my lesson. I would say I've probably done more digital filmmaking more than any other person on the planet, because I started so young and was embedded in it to such a heavy level. You know, even in film school, I was stuck there. You know, 1989, I was doing stuff digitally and you know, trying to push the boundaries. There's a moment of truth where you realize that, you know, digital is just, it means nothing. It's a capture format, and what you really should be doing is capturing reality through the digital sensor onto a hard drive and make sure that hard drive doesn't perish, because that's the way you can, you know, you can achieve immortality through filmmaking or what have you. So there is a great burden on us now to not follow the path of the AI generated content, because it's not going to resonate in 100 years from now. You know, what we do now will shape the future, you know, shape the future of creativity. I'm just this little speck in the whole sphere of things, but you know, I've learned the lessons probably sooner than just about anyone else, because as I said, I was the first in there, and I'm still making movies, and the movies are only now just getting better because I've torn off that digital computer, you know, realm, and pulled back and said, look, this is, you know, this is what we need to do. We need to, you know, preserve humanity and capture the moment and capture where we are now and you know, who we are. The world should understand who we are through storytelling. And, you know, that could be television, it could be film, it could be a short film, it could be anything. But that's the burden of an artist.